Hi there.
Hi.
It's Belinda and Lee from Chateau Mareuil. Today we are going to tell you about how we came to find Chateau Mareuil itself. You might have already seen so our description of how we came to France, buy property in France in the first place. That was our place in Normandy. And then you might have seen another film we've made, which is telling you about our first steps into buying a chateau in France, which actually ended in us not buying that particular chateau. But today we're going to tell you about how we found Chateau Mareuil. And my hair's falling down, sorry about that. Hair's restored, I can talk now.
So after a brief hair stop, we're back.
So from the last film, you may recall that the chateau in Lower Normandy that we were going to buy, the chateau at Jouet-du-Bois, fell through at the last minute, and we were really, really upset and really disappointed about that. But to be fairly, it didn't take us long, did it, to shake ourselves off?
No.
And get going on looking for another one.
And Belinda compiled one of her now infamous spreadsheets on Excel.
Absolutely.
And did a ring round and set up all the appointments for 1 and a bit weeks to visit. I think it was about 17 different chateaux.
We'd pretty much decided on an area in the centre of France. I think the fact that we didn't buy the place in Normandy, I think made us think a little bit more about what we really wanted. And one of the things that was very important was climate. And Normandy is beautiful. It's lush, it's green. However, it is inclined to be wet sometimes. And we were looking for a better climate. We were looking for more sunshine, to be fair.
More sunshine. But, interestingly enough, the season we decided to go and look for chateau in January and February, because in this part of the world, that's the coldest, most unpleasant weather you're going to get, January, February, March.
We thought if we love it in the winter, when it's nasty, we're going to adore it in the summer.
And also, if it's been raining or snowing, you'll know if the roof's leaking, you'll know if the windows are letting by, you'll see if the damp is coming in on any of the rooms, you can smell it. So the winter throws up all the potential problems that you might come across when you're buying an ancient building.
So I'd set up all these appointments. I think we'd originally planned to see 12, Lee, and I think in the end we got to see about 10. There were a couple that for various reasons the appointments fell through and we didn't get to see them. But I'm sure we saw 10. And I know that you've got photographs of about 7 of those.
About 7 of them.
We should, in hindsight, again, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? We should have catalogued this better and taken more photographs and taken more records, really, of our journey. But we didn't, and we've got quite a bit we can show you.
You'll see the still photos flip up as we're going through it. And the reason these were taken were for our memory joggers when we were trying to decide what to buy. Little did we know, 6 years later on, we'd be sitting here in front of a camera vlogging it.
Can I just say that I always remember seeing the picture of this place that we've ended up buying, and I remember showing it to Lee and saying, look, it's so pretty, don't you love it? And you weren't particularly taken with it, were you? Do you remember?
Not at first, no.
And do you know the reason I loved it was because of the garden. Actually, the picture showed it was full of flowers. Just shows, doesn't it, men and women?
So what I've done is I've made some notes down here in my book of the order that we saw the various chateaux.
Do you remember, Lee, how much? I'm just trying to remember now how much our ceiling was. I think we were looking up to about, at that time, 600,000 euros, which in sterling at that time, because this was now 6 years ago, was a lot less than it is now because the rate of exchange was so much better. So probably 600,000 euro at that point would have been more like £400,000.
Yeah.
So quite a lot less than you would. I mean, now 600,000 now would be probably 530 or 40,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So a huge difference.
So it really was cheap. It doesn't sound it if you haven't got a lot of money, but for what we were getting, we were buying an awful lot, and we didn't pay that for this.
No.
So the other thing that might be worth making a note of, and Belinda will go through the details of this better than I, that we made a big mistake when we bought this, and basically the mistake was that it was on for sale with an agent locally, a French agent, but it was also on an internet site.
Well, that's
and
how
I think
found
you should
it, to be fair.
tell the story of this.
Yeah.
So onward and upward. The first one, now these have been given really odd names.
You've given them funny names.
And it's the only way we know what they are. So the
You've
first
got
one,
1970s
1970s Man was the first chateau we went to
That was
see.
because there was a massive 1970s desk. Do you
Looked
remember?
like James Bond.
And like an executive leather swivel office chair.
In a really old chateau.
And it was really old-fashioned. It was really 1970s.
You may
It was
start
so
seeing
dated.
some photos. It was in a really nice elevated position.
It was over the Dordogne.
I looked right down onto the Dordogne River that went in through the valley below. The swimming pool was wrecked. It had the liner was out of it. It was in a terrible state. The ensuite bar had seen a lot better days. You wouldn't want to be mixing a martini in there, I can tell you.
Dear.
And the decor was very 1970s. You know, if you think some Bruno rough cut, a pipe, a pair of slippers, a velvet smoking jacket, and some Stan Getz blasting out on the wireless.
Simon Templar might
Simon
have,
Templar,
he might
yeah,
have been
yeah.
very comfortable there.
And the chink of ice going into the cocktail shaker, you'd be pretty much on the money. When we saw this one, it was snowing, and everything about it was good. It just needed totally upgrading, and because of the room relationships, the way that you had to walk through one room to get to another room, and the fact that the pool needed a lot of work doing to it, it kind of put us off really. So we moved on to the next one.
We
didn't
did,
we?
which was
Bellegarde.
Bellegarde.
Chateau Bellegarde, or as I refer to it as the organ grinder's house.
Oh yes.
So you might be seeing some stills now floating up of the organ grinder's house. The couple that had it, very nice couple.
Actually, it was a pretty place. It
was very pretty,
It
really
was set
nice.
in a wood, wasn't it?
It was set in the woods.
Lovely.
And the reason I call it the organ grinder's house is because the couple that lived there, the man actually made church organs, and he had a huge tower put on the side of the building, which looked a bit odd, where he could erect the organ pipes and play organ music before selling them on to churches or festival halls or something.
It had a folly in the garden. I remember that. That was pretty.
I think the tower for the organ pipes was a bit of a folly as well. That kind of put me off. It had a lovely workshop, but you can't live in a workshop. And the grounds were lovely, but again, you only use them in the summer. So the rest of it was very higgledy-piggledy, and the doorways were quite narrow, and we got some quite large furniture. It wasn't somewhere we felt we could call home.
The next chateau we called Charlie Chaplin because the story goes that in the 1920s, Charlie Chaplin had been a guest at this chateau, and also the then editor of Vogue, I can't remember her name, but these were clearly celebrities at the time, and they had been guests at this chateau, and indeed it was lovely. However, there were two things specifically that put us off, Lee. Do you remember?
Yeah.
In the basement.
We before you get to that, right? This place had a ballroom which
yeah.
was second to none, and it had what's called jib doors, which are hidden doors with no handles, and you press them and they pop out, and you could go from the ballroom into a very well shelved out library, and it was quite a quiet place. It was wonderful, but the views, when you looked out of this beautiful setting, you could look out from the bay window from the ballroom across to the cement works that was parked next door to it. And just below the cement works was the swimming pool for this chateau, which obviously hadn't been swimming other than
mouldy,
by
wasn't it?
alligators and lizards
Like a
for the
swamp.
last 12 years or something. The place hadn't been lived in,
Terrible.
and just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, we were shown the cellarage, which was great. And
They
when
shouldn't have shown us that.
When we went down to the cellar, we realised that there was a big fireplace, and it was propped up by 4 large acros and some temporary steelwork, and it looked like one side of the building was about to drop off. So we immediately headed for the car keys and run to the hills, shaking. We had to go for a drink after that, I seem to remember.
And the very narrow turrets.
We had the next one we looked at was a place called Chateau Chavrush.
The turret, Lee, do you remember one person could hardly walk up the turret.
up
It was
the
so
turret.
narrow. I thought, how would you get anything up that turret? I have no idea. It was beautiful, and it was very beautifully furnished. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I never forget wanting to take photographs of all of the beautiful light fittings and artwork. Sadly, the owner, the elderly lady owner, asked us not to take any photographs.
But we could take photos from the outside, which is what we did, and you can see the photos coming up now. The place was a bit of a ruin on the outside.
Slightly
There was
tumbled
areas that were ticker taped off saying "Danger, do not enter."
Imagine the grandchildren in a place like that.
Yeah, we couldn't, and it was perched on the edge of a cliff with no wall, so they could have just run off the edge of a cliff.
Terrible.
Which was enough to put anyone off. And those of you who have seen any of our vlogs before, seen us on the TV, you would know that I'm scared of heights, and particularly working up cherry pickers and ladders. Well, that's not my only phobia. I'm also scared of confined spaces. And I went up this turret and started to have a claustrophobic attack halfway up. And at that point, I thought, no, this is not the place for me.
So Chateau Chavroche.
Goodbye.
The next one.
The next
I'm
one
just
was
looking
hilarious.
at Lee's spelling, which I'm trying to decipher.
You don't worry about that.
Chateau Fontariol,
Fontaroyal.
which was a museum.
This guy had turned this chateau into a museum. It was in a courtyard chateau, very old. It was probably medieval, same as Marais, from about 1400. And it was wonderful, but it actually turned it into a museum. So when you went in, there was like heraldic shields and spears and swords hanging on the walls. Lovely stuff, really nice, but it didn't make for a comfortable living space. I mean,
spooky, wasn't it? Do you remember that?
I
opened a door.
No, the guy encouraged you to open the door, and all of a sudden Belinda screamed and nearly fainted. And I thought, what's she seen in there? And what the guy had done, it was the first indoor toilet, and he'd got a mannequin of this lady with her skirts hitched up, sitting on the toilet. And Belinda opened the door, thinking she was walking in on the madam of the Chatelaine.
Oh, that's horrible.
Taking one out, you know. It was so funny.
Right. Swiftly moving on.
See your face go so white.
Anyway, it's not funny, it's rude. Right, Lee can't stop laughing because if he thinks he's funny, I don't. The next chateau is described as Le Bois, which means the woods. Actually, there's a Chateau Le Bois just up the road from us.
Yeah.
The one from a previous vlog, which is up for sale. But Chateau Le Bois, Lee's put here Harley Davidson, and I know why, because he was really envious because the guy had oh God, do you remember that
massive
barn which he turned into? Literally, it was
Harley Davidson workshop.
Tribute, wasn't it, to Harley Davidson? It was fabulous.
Loads and loads of early 30s, 40s Harley memorabilia in there, in really pristine condition. He had a collection of about 30 or 40 motorbikes in pristine condition, and they were, unfortunately, they didn't come with a house, otherwise I would have bought the whole lot. It was lovely.
But you know what that place didn't have, Lee?
Didn't have a swimming pool.
But it didn't have a turret. Well, this place didn't have a swimming pool either.
No.
But it didn't have a turret, and I think by that point, I think we were very firmly fixed on the idea.
Had to have a turret.
If we didn't have a moat, and I think at that point you'd thought, oh, I can live without a moat, I might have to.
I can live without a moat.
But I really want a turret or two. And we ended up with one, but there we are.
No, we've got two turrets, you can only see one.
Oh, yeah.
There is an internal turret that you can't
We'll show
actually
you that
see
one
from
day.
the outside.
The next chateau actually was my absolute number one favourite on paper. So from the photograph, from the description, this was the chateau I thought we were going to buy. And actually, Lee, do you remember this was our second runner?
Yeah.
So if we hadn't have bought this, we would have bought this one. And this is so pretty. Again, sitting high up, overlooking the Dordogne River. It's absolutely charming.
It was in that gorgeous yellowy sandstone that you get down near Sala.
And 4 turrets. Four
turrets.
And
a swimming pool.
And beautiful inside. It's got to be said, it was beautifully restored, but very, very small. And we couldn't see a development opportunity there for us, actually, could we?
No.
We couldn't see anything that we could do to make it into something better. So it was lovely as it was. It was a lovely holiday home property. That's the way I viewed that place.
Yeah, the room relationships were very awkward as well. So there was 2 staircases which took up a lot of room, and you didn't need to.
Do you remember the little bathrooms? The bathrooms, each bedroom, there were 4 bedrooms, and each had a little ensuite bathroom in the turret.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
But they were tiny.
Yeah.
So no, we
Good
didn't
views
buy that
though.
one.
Yeah. And then finally there was a place called Chateau Vertiac, which was a lovely courtyarded place with lots of outbuildings and barns and land.
Yes.
And we were shown round by an agent who we'd seen a few properties with, who we nicknamed the Flying Dutchman. And the reason for this was he was a Dutchman,
He was.
spoke perfect English, wore a velour hat like a trilby, but with a very extended wide brim, which come in handy when it rained and he smoked his cigar as we were walking around, because it kept his cigars sort of dry. But the reason we called him the Flying Dutchman is he kind of appeared at these properties from nowhere, as if by magic he'd sort of suddenly loom up on you, and you think, where did you come from? Anyway, he started to show us round, and this place started off really nice because the ground floor was fairly well, in good order. It needed redecoration, but we knew we were going to have to do that anyway. But as you started to go up the building, it became more and more decrepit and falling down, and you realise that no amount of money was going to put this right until you got into the attic space and you looked up into the roof and you could see the sky all the way round. It needed a new roof on it, and I reckon, at the time it was such a big place, the roof would have set you back at least €800,000. It was, seriously big. And it was just too much of a DIY project for us to do. So that kind of ruled it out. Although the Flying Dutchman was ever such a convincing salesman, we had to prize ourselves away.
I was sad,
from
really,
him.
in the end. These agents do work hard to
They
sell
work
property
really
in
hard,
France.
yeah. And they're good. They do a lot of running around for you.
So, do you remember, it was a lovely day. It was a lovely winter's day when we came to see Chateau Mareuil. I think it was an afternoon. I remember we had the meeting with the estate agent at 2:00, and we pulled up in the town square in Montmorillon, which is now our nearest town, our local town. And we met Sophie, who was the estate agent, and she still is a friend, and we know her very well. She lives locally, and the rest is history. And we followed her in her car. She drove off at breakneck speed. Do you remember?
Yeah.
So fast. And we followed on in our car. We still got the same car.
Yeah.
That was 6 years ago, nearly 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And we drove up the driveway to this place. Well, we saw it from afar to begin with.
Yeah.
But we progressed up the driveway, and there the pretty little Chateau Mareuil emerged. And what a charming place.
And charming former owners as well,
Absolutely
actually. I have to
charming.
say, they were lovely.
It was a lovely visit. It was a beautiful sunny winter's day.
Yeah.
I always remember being very taken by going down to the River Lee, and it was just lovely. The sun was sparkling through the branches onto the water, and I remember having a lovely walk along the river, being very, very taken, I think, with the romance and the situation, I think, of this chateau, the way it's set so prettily high up over the river, and the fact that you can see it, I think, from the road. Beautiful. You can do that?
So, once we'd seen it and been round, our mind was made up,
We really loved it.
We loved this
We
place,
did,
and still do,
We do.
And we recognised there was potential there that we could actually achieve. And the proof of that is we're here, and we have done what we set out to do here.
I think what was very appealing to us is that we could afford to buy it and still have some of our capital left to make those improvements and changes that we have. Well, we've made significant inroads into that. So we have put a pool in, we have had some important renovation work done, and we do have some plans for some more. But I think that was really important, don't you? That it wasn't completely finished, and that we were able to add our own touches to this place.
I think the other thing that really attracted me to this place, unlike many of the chateaux that we've viewed, which were, I would call them vanity projects, which are rich French industrialists who've got a lot of money and they want to show off their wealth, and they have these grand chateaux built to celebrate their good fortune. This is actually a working property. It was built as a fortress. It's classed as a working castle at one point.
I think we like the
And
honesty
it's
of
honest,
it, don't we?
yeah, it's an honest building. It is what it is, and it was petite. So the
Yeah.
roof was good, the windows were good, the damp proof was good, the wiring had been done. So a lot of it had been sorted
I
out.
always say, for me, I could put my arms around it, if that makes any sense. It's sort of got that feeling of it's small and cute, and it's ours.
So I hope you've enjoyed listening and seeing the photos.
We've enjoyed
Please-
talking about it, actually,
Yeah,
haven't we?
and we've not gone on too long and
It's been
bored
ages
you.
since we've gone down this
It's
memory
quite
lane.
a good memory trip for us. So thank you for watching, and thank you for your patience and all your support. Keep watching, keep subscribing, tell your friends.
Keep liking us. We
Keep
like
liking
you.
us. We like you. Yeah. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
bye-bye, Misty. Say bye-bye.
Bye bye, Misty.
Bye-bye, Misty. See you soon, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.